Hey guys, this is Tanner Invest here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we are going to talk about BMNR, their new chairman's message, as well as the recent price action and a couple of other big news for BMNR and what's going on with that. 5 days ago, I made a video about how I'm buying more because it is trading under 40 and now it's trading right at around 30. So you guys know Ethereum is trading in the dust right now, but there's so many catalysts I've talked about. I have a video on 40 reasons why Ethereum and BMNR, I think, will be going up over time. There are other people very bullish in the community, not just me, as well as one of the smartest guys in all of Wall Street, Tom Lee, who's been right time and time and time again when he's been bullish when other people are bearish, and that's still the case. We know he's been calling for some crazy, crazy high numbers, but that being said, he's still technically right, but we have until the end of the year because he did say, him and Mark Newton both. Mark Newton is from Fundstrat, one of his chief strategy officers there, or one of their big high up guys. He's on CNBC quite often. He mentioned that November will be choppy, and so is Tom Lee. Tom Lee said the first couple weeks of November are going to be choppy, and then he sees there being a bounce after that as we get into December with the Fed rate cut and things like that. Now, that's changed a little bit now that there's been a new meeting where they were a bit more hawkish than expected. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in, guys. We're going to get to the screen here. Ethereum, today we're trading a little over 3,000, and we at one point traded under 3,000. So that's kind of crazy. Over the past week, 15% down. I mean, we were at $3,600 saying the world was falling. And then now look, holy moly, we are down to $3,000 on ETH. Bitcoin is also down. I mean, we're trading under 95,000 on Bitcoin. BMNR is down to $31, down 10% on the day. That is crazy, and I have been buying some more. So that being said, let's see. BitMine, I bought today, 6 hours ago. I sold some Google because they're trading crazy high. I sold some shares of Vanguard S&P fund. And what I'm going to be doing is buying more BMNR and buying some other things like Robinhood's going down crazy right now and some other stocks. I'm going to just DCA. I'm not going to just dump my money in. I'm going to DCA, be smart about it. In case we do go down further, we get into a bear market, I just want to have some cash for that. But yeah, knock on wood, guys. Everything goes well with Ethereum, right? No, I'm just kidding. But that being said, I'm not a financial advisor. So please don't follow my trades unless you know the risk, and good luck to you because I didn't click the buy button, right guys? All right, so let's go ahead and hop into the X. I just want to go over a couple of little X posts that I found interesting. Tom Lee is here. Bitcoin and Ethereum are friends, and he tweeted about Bitcoin being super volatile. They've been Fundstrat, as in they, have been telling their clients to buy Bitcoin since 2017. So if you were a Fundstrat client in 2017 and they told you to allocate 1 to 2% of your portfolio, you'd be freaking rich right now. And since then, he did say over the past 8.5 years, there's been 6 declines where Bitcoin has gone 50% drawdown and 3 declines, 75% drawdown. And at 2025, Bitcoin is now 100x from their first recommendation. So, for example, if my portfolio, if I put in 1%, I would probably have $500,000, give or take, in Bitcoin today if I just listened to my guy, Tom Lee, which is kind of crazy to think about. That being said, people aren't always right. No one can see into the future. There's just a lot of catalysts that we've talked about time and time again. I have a video, 27 reasons why, 40 reasons why BMNR could 27x. That was a fun one. And then my last video is just why I'm buying more. And that kind of goes hand in hand with this video. Hunter Horsley, which is the CEO of Bitwise Invest, they have over 15 billion in client assets under management. And he just tweeted a few days ago, people don't want to hear it, but things underway for crypto are possibly the most bullish it's been in 10 years. Substance is rapidly arriving. So the fundamentals, which is what Ether Machine's talking about, how the change is being used more. Like, why would something not go in value if it's literally being used like 10, 20 times more than it was being used? Other than that, we also got to know that there are things like the Clarity Act, which I made an entire video on. You guys probably already know that, but that market structure bill, there's been some more talk about it and how it's potentially going to be, there's going to be a draft by Thanksgiving. That's the goal, is to have a draft by Thanksgiving to hopefully get this bill finished up, the final T's crossed and I's dotted by the end of the year, hopefully going into at least January to get that market structure bill. Then, I mean, it's like Mike Novogratz said. He said it's like jumping into the pool knowing that it's safe, knowing that the pool is safe, knowing that there's no sharks in the water, right? And then Tom Lee also, this is a funny tweet because someone posted, I'm 100% positive Tom Lee regrets BMNR. There was no pressure to make sure a specific crypto performed. He was just chilling, just talking about overall markets. Dude was a hero to some. Now he has pressure of making sure that one single crypto performs. If it doesn't, he gets backlash. Guys, Tom Lee, no. First off, he said, he wrong. ETH is a super cycle, so I'll let you hear what he said first. Second of all, guys, we got to remember that BitMine is still $31.05. So for a lot of the people that bought into BitMine early, like the pipe investors, what I'm talking about, like at $4.50, they're probably carrying him, they're buying every drink at the bar for Tom Lee right now. They're paying for his steak dinner. There are a lot of people very happy with Tom right now. And then there are people in the Ethereum community. I mean, even now, let's look at Ethereum, before Tom Lee. In July and June was around the time when he started the pipe. So June, July, we've seen, it's still gone up since then. So there are a lot of people very happy with Tom Lee. My BMNR, we're at $31.05, 10% down on the day, guys, after 5% down on Ethereum. And what did I do? I just showed you. I bought more. I actually bought a little bit more before that, I believe. This isn't showing the notification, but I've been trying to buy every single day. I bought 50 shares here. So there we go. And then we see here, let's go ahead and get into let's go ahead and get the chairman's message. So the two key takeaways from the chairman message is that Tom Lee has a new narrative that he's trying to explain, that the 4 cycle is dead, the 4-year cycle. And so why that's important is because the 4-year cycle is done, and it's going to be in 2026, the cycle's over, right? So he's trying to explain to people that he doesn't think it's going to be ending, because there are a lot of people actually, like I said earlier, Mark Newton from Fundstrat actually talked about recently in a video interview that the 2026 is going to be a bad year for crypto because the 4-year cycle. And so he basically said what are the possible explanations of there being a Bitcoin price cycle? He said that there are too many 4-year things to take this out of the equation. Monetary policy has no relationship on the cycle over time. The margin debt has only been right on 1 of 3 cycles. But the 2 things that he's kind of tuning into now is the gold versus Bitcoin versus copper ratio, and then the business cycle for ISM manufacturing, which is essentially a survey where they interview manufacturing managers, and they get a sentiment, their sentiment over time. And if it's above 50, it typically means that the economy is expanding. And if it's below 50, it means the economy is contracting, manufacturing. And that if you go and look, let's go ahead and pop up here. So the 4-year gold cycle, as we can see at the end of each cycle, we can see that the gold ratio, when it's a pretty elevated price, is whenever we see the end typically of the bull market for Bitcoin. So the final year of that rally, we can see here it happened again. Here it happened in 2021 again. But right now, the copper to gold ratio is very, very low. So there's no evidence that we should top here because that ratio is pretty low. This is what Tom Lee is saying, guys. I'm just showing what he's saying. So this is the cycle for ISM manufacturing. The same chart we can see 2023, 2017, and 2021. We can see here the same exact years we have it peaking. Industrial activity peaks, and then that's when we typically we see a rise in the price of Bitcoin as well. And we're just not seeing that right now, because right now we are actually at a contracting level. We're under 50. We're at 48.7. And so there's no, I guess, evidence to prove that we should be topping in Bitcoin due to these events happening. And so that's one of the things, because Listen, I've been in the camp for a bit now that I don't really agree with like a 4-year cycle on any asset. I don't think that's the way liquidity works. I think that, over time, institutions like banks have gotten involved. We have huge companies out there that we have ETFs like IBIT and ETHA, and these things are balancing and steadying out. I do think the asset has gotten less volatile, that's for sure. But I also think that it's not just going to have these massive drawdowns as it once did, just because there's just way more liquidity. Listen, I could be wrong, but I have been in that camp, and it seems like Tom Lee is now in that camp as well. And then the other big thing he talked about was tokenization. Now, I know a lot of times, guys, we hear tokenization and people just want to skip into the video. Now, I want you guys to actually listen to this part just because it's very interesting what he talked about today. He's not just talking about tokenization of art and real estate and the things like we already know. He's talking about like the different ways we can tokenize things. And it actually made it really, really interesting. And I do think there's one thing he talked about in specifics that could bring a lot more liquidity into the market. And let's go ahead and talk about it. So first he talks about this painting. He says not only can you take a token of the painting, like a portion of the painting, this would be like buying a part of real estate as well. Like you don't buy the whole piece of real estate, you buy a fraction of it, like fractional shares. And then you can also do things like factorizing the business. So you can have the different colors of the painting being tokenized. Now, what he's relating this to is a company. And so he's saying, look at Tesla, for example. So Tesla has a lot of products. So I think let me pop down here. So he said you can product tokenization. So you can tokenize different products within a single entity and buy just into that specific part of the business. And so imagine like Tesla here, you could he says Elon's brain, because we all know a large part of Tesla's overall market cap is this Elon's brain, because a lot of people it's the Elon Musk company. That's why it's trading so freaking high. Obviously, they have a ton of things going on, but if Elon were no longer at the company, I think the company's stock would tank. And thinking of a company like Google that's so well diversified and has so many different products, it has its advertisement business, has its cloud business, it has like security and Nest and all kinds as its workspace business. But also it has Waymo, right? So like what if you could just buy a token of Waymo within Google, and that would rise and fall as if it were just its own equity. So that's a way to overall, it's like it's like a sum of parts, but like in reality, it's not just people like being like, oh, compartmentalizing the balance sheet and saying, oh, they have 5 million here, 3 million here, 2 million here. What if you could tokenize the different products within a company, and then the total company's valuation is the sum of all of its products? Like that would be freaking cool, guys. I mean, I don't know how it'd really work in the grand scheme of things, but Tom Lee's saying that it could happen, which I think is pretty freaking cool. So yeah, guys, if you want to watch his chairman's message, it's 12 minutes long, pretty short. I would highly recommend taking a look at that. And then a couple small little things. BitMine did come out with their latest update holding. So this is actually November 10th holding. And the reason why I want to compare it is because we got to look at how much assets they had and how much ETH they had. So we can see here that in the new one, their Bitcoin holdings went down from 13.2 billion to 11.8. That's just because the price of ETH fell, but they did acquire some more ETH. And then they have their moonshots and their Bitcoin as well, but they also have more cash. So as we see here, they had $398 million cash. They had 3.5 million ETH. Now we have 3.559 million ETH and 607 million cash, which tells me, guys, they're not the most transparent with their MNAV. We kind of got to do the research ourselves to figure that out, which kind of stinks. But that being said, we do know that they are pounding the ATM because they have more cash and they bought ETH. That's just not possible unless you raise capital, and clearly they are raising capital. They talk about it here. You can see their weekly buys. They actually bought a little less this week, and you would think, well, it's dipping. Why aren't they buying more? Well, guys, this is what we've talked about. They are a digital asset treasury company, and the only way you can, raise capital, really, I mean, the best way to raise capital is pounding the ATM. Pounding the ATM, it depends on your MNAV. Their MNAV has contracted, so that's why they're not able to raise as much capital. So in an ideal world, they'd be trading at a really high MNAV right now. They can hit the ATM a little harder and then buy even more ETH while it's dipping. That would be fantastic. Obviously, that's not the case as what's happening here. But then I just wanted to get into the final thing, which was the new CEO, which his name is Chi Tsang. Now, if I'm completely mispronouncing that, I'm sorry. But he was the former head of Asia TMT investment banking at HSBC. And they have guided many companies through digital technology transformations. Now, I wanted to hop into their website because it tells a little bit more. Chi Tsang is a Wall Street veteran with more than 25 years of experience in senior roles across venture capital, investment banking, portfolio management, and equity research. His career has spanned New York and Hong Kong with a focus on technology, media, and internet sectors. So the reason why I think this is pretty interesting is because senior roles across venture capital and investment banking they labeled first, which let's go back to his chairman's message real quick, because we know at the very bottom, and what Tom Lee has pushed in his last couple of chairman's message is roadmap looking ahead. So what is this? So we have a validator network. They have community participants. They also have BitMine moonshots. So they want to have select investments in bold ideas that enhance Ethereum's network value, like Google and other bets. So it'll be nice to have a CEO who has a lot of experience in VC and investment banking that can kind of lead the charge here. The other thing, we have the 5% of the Ethereum network. That's that alchemy at 5%. And I think that's happening regardless of who the CEO is. So the fact that they hired someone with that kind of experience makes me think that they're going to be doing a lot of BitMine moonshots potentially, which will be pretty exciting. I actually already talked about Google other bets. One example of an other bet, as I talked about earlier, would be Waymo. Waymo is in that category of other bets on their balance sheet and on their financial statements and everything. So that is it, guys. I will pause this here. If you want to pause this here, sorry, you can read this. I'm not going to read it though. It's just more about Chi Tsang. If you're interested, you can. Here, let me pull up a bit. Yeah, you can pause that there, and I can zoom. And then I'll also link this below. But yeah, he came from HSBC, which is a British universal bank and financial services group headquartered in London, England, with East Asia footprint. Explains it. So yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna keep doing my thing. I know it's a little scary when things drop like this, guys, but that's cryptocurrency nature. I think ultimately, if you're excited when it's high and the thesis hasn't changed, then why are you so scared when it goes down? Like, that's, I guess, my only thing to leave this with, guys. But we'll love some comments below. We'll love for a subscription if you guys are planning on watching more videos on YouTube, because I'm nearing 5,000. So thank you, guys. Have a great rest of your day.